This is how to stop wasting your tournament matches. By the end of this video, I want you to be making 7 out of 7 endgames in every Cash Cup and 10 out of 10 endgames in all FNCS qualifiers. I think most people watching have the skill to go far in these tournaments, but they always have that 1 or 2 blunders of a game that hold them back. Drop a like if that's you and invest in the channel if you'd like to see more video topics like this. But the first huge mistake I see people making is selecting their drop spot. I'm assuming half the people watching have this following mentality. They say, I want to play more consistent and stop dying off spawn, so I need to drop off the grid. No, that is how you lead to inconsistent games. When selecting your main POI, do not land small locations, at least if that's your reason. There is a time and a place to land small POIs, but it is not in the essence of quote-unquote playing consistently in tournaments like Cash Cups. Rather, you should land at larger POIs that have more room for you if you're contested, or land at a region of the map where you can split off to nearby drops if you're contested. But these small POIs where it's a make or break if you're contested is not how you play consistent. I know there's going to be someone in the comments explaining too that if you're better than the contesting team, then it shouldn't matter and it's a free kill, but that's not really the case. Early game fights are called 50-50s for a reason. You either get the gun or you don't. And even if you each land on a weapon, this isn't a fight of skill or building prowess, it's just whoever gets unlucky enough to die. Even GOATs like Mongrel and Savage last FNCS weren't able to qualify to grand finals this past season due to their small drop being contested. They died like half of their qualifying games off of spawn. And obviously, I'm not better than them, so no disregard there, but my favorite pros to watch are more consistent pros like Kanata, who has made every single FNCS grand finals ever, the only one to do it. So I love watching him because he's consistent and he lands in these region-based locations as to not get contested and die early. If we take a look, it's these split drops where it's more of a region to loot, so even if he was contested, he'd have plenty of loot spots to break off of and land on, as opposed to battling for the top chest at a tiny POI. For the same reason, I like landing at Reckless Railway or Pleasant Piazza for the house dynamic. If I'm contested, I can just land at a different house than that person and get looted up, because at least if I die early, I still would have had a chance at that fight. You know, I'd rather be forced to take an early game fight with bad loot and 200 mats than to take a straight 50-50 at a small POI. You either waste that game or you get lucky, and that's not consistent. So I recommend dropping these house POIs or dropping at a region that has spread out chests and easily farmable loot. That will be your consistent play. Okay, so think about it, here's some time, and now that you found your POI that you want to drop, you need to be making a plan for your tournament and have point echelons that designate how you want to play. The amount of times I've been having a good tournament and then die one time off spawn and start spiraling is unbelievable. I start thinking, oh god, I'm behind, so now I need a W key game where I get a lot of kills to catch up, and then I just die while W keying. And the worst part, I'll then look at the scoreboard later and realize that if I just played to endgame for the rest of those, I would have been fine. Comment if you relate with that, but I've been recently writing down these point thresholds on a piece of paper and associating a playstyle for each one so I know what to do and when. For example, if I can get over 45 points in my first game in, say, a solo Cash Cup, I will then play the next match safer since I'll be in a higher elo lobby. But if I don't pass that 50-point threshold in game 1, I'll W key my next match since I'll still be in those slightly easier lobbies. Especially with the recent changes to the solo Cash Cup format, this is super important. And I've been writing down each playstyle I want to have according to what game I'm on and the points associated. And that's just to make sure I don't make an emotional decision in the moment and throw my tournament. If on my piece of paper it says to play safe, then I'm going to play safe. If on my piece of paper it says to aggro and go W key, then I'll do that. And it's weird, I've never heard anyone else talk about this when planning. So I don't know, if you think it's a good idea, try it out. And if it helps, use code reidtheninja in the item shop to help me out. But what I do hear other people talk about when planning is in terms of rotations, endgame strategies, etc., which is equally as important. So to touch on that, before the tournament, get into a mindset and plan the actual game in terms of movements and actions. For example, know that if you're by a forecast tower, you need to be watching out for it to spawn before zone starts moving or it gets contested. Know that by endgame, say zone 9 or 10, if you have more than 1,000 mats, your plan should be to take high ground. Or if not, you might want to play ultimate low ground or mid ground. Know these things early so that in the moment you don't have to hesitate. And if you want to play consistent and make it to endgame, plan out every possible route if zone say pulls north of your drop or south of your drop, if you need to hike it to the left or to the right. Where are the launch pads on the map? Where are the geysers? You should know all of these things beforehand. Success is just the crossroads of preparation and execution. Quote that to Read the Ninja, write that down in the history books. That is going to be some crazy trivia later. It'll be trivia night at the bar and they'll say, who said this quote? Abraham Lincoln, Dwight D. Eisenhower, or Reid the Ninja, a Fortnite YouTuber? That's what I'm saying, write it down. But this again has to do with your play style, point plan too. A lot of people preach about these loot routes and planning, but it's okay to have different approaches as the tournament progresses. For instance, early on I'd be aggressing mid-game objectives like the Rift Island to get loot and a vantage point as well as any elim points that come with it. But later in the tournament, once I'm getting down to my last couple games, I'd probably plan to avoid mid-game objectives. If I'm trying to play safe, my rotations would get wider and be less direct through the circle, and maybe I'd even rotate earlier or later and go through zone to account for that. All of these things you should have planned for before you've even taken your first drop. But now that you have your master plan and your drop spot locked in, you now need to win your drop every time. The obvious best way to do that is have a better drop than anyone else and get the gun first. So if you don't know what a drop map is, it's the ideal spots around your POI to pull your glider and land at before anyone else. And there's a lot of ways to find a drop map that works for you in your POI. Some people do it manually, some people pay $5 to $10 for a pre-established one, or for someone else to do it for them. But honestly, I'm not a huge fan of either of those options since the Fortnite map is constantly changing. Say you spend $10 for a drop map and then in between seasons your POI gets completely erased. That would suck, but in the alternate case that even if it makes it to the end of the chapter, you're pretty much guaranteed every year when the map resets that you're going to need to buy or create a new drop map. So that's why I've been looking for a solution that adapts to the map where you don't need to keep buying. And I actually have found the right app for that. Well, technically the app found me, but the owner asked me for a sponsor, which I gladly accepted because this is the best drop map solution there is. I'm not even being biased here, but bro is an ex-competitive player who locked in, studied computer science, and created an auto drop mapper that adjusts to the current island and gives you that lowest point. And not only that, but he's done some wild image recognition that analyzes your map and finds your bus route. That way you don't just know the lowest point to pull your glider at, you know the lowest point in relation to your specific bus path to pull your glider at. I don't know, I think that's cool. I'm not even trying to glaze, but I feel like we've all had this idea for an application at some time, but he's actually the one that went out and made it. Because this game has been out for 7 years and it took that long for someone to actually make a mathematical drop map calculator. But it's finally here. You can also use it to plan your rotates through zone. It has this storm prediction feature where you can map every single zone that's happened thus far and plan for the next zone once it reveals itself, or you can turn on the auto predict feature, which does the mathematical calculations to find the most likely next zone. And my favorite feature has to be that it shows you the congestion. Red obviously means highly congested, yellow is slightly congested, and green is the best place to be because it's dead side. And if you're wondering, yes, that is a complete tactical advantage, but no, it's not against terms of service. It is just an application overlay similar to like Crosshair X, so it's perfectly okay. It doesn't touch any of your actual files, which is crazy that it still works as good as it does without seeing your private goods in there. But hey, the application is called IGLoo and it is clearly made for IGLs in the Fortnite scene if you just look at the logo. So yes, it is a sponsor, but this is a genuine tip to play consistently if you have the money. If you're interested, the link is down below and the creator is a great guy who's going to be constantly updating this. But once you've mastered your drop map, whether that is using IGLoo or just another platform, you should be able to get the gun first every time and wipe your opponents. And competitive is ramping up this season. FNCS is just around the corner, so if you want to see my picks for the season, click this video right here. I think Clix is finally going to win it all for the first time, and I'm not even trying to be delusional. I genuinely think he's going to do it because of what I show in this video. There's a couple things that I point out that make me believe this is truly the time for him, and if I've helped you out, please use code reidtheninja or just another small creator's code to help us out. Drop a like, invest in the channel for more, and on that note, I am signing off.